everyone. I'm in an alleyway quickly filming an intro. So I just wanted to say that today I'm sitting down with Aimee, a really wonderful client of mine that's sharing a wonderful recovering story in her journey with DPDR, but especially an existential panic crisis. So yeah, I hope that you guys tune in well, listen to her advice, tips and tricks, and enjoy this video because it's a beautiful story. So everyone, thank you for watching in advance, and I'll see you guys in the next video.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So maybe to start off, just kind of start by telling everyone, I guess, your experience with DPDR and existential anxiety, kind of how it all started for you, what you experienced, and maybe just kind of giving a little background story.
Okay. Um, I guess like I would say that I've experienced this one other time like before this period where I was in high school and like now looking back at it, like I know it was probably DPDR, but I didn't know it at the time. So like my first experience with it all was like years and years ago. Um, and I kind of like got through that just by like I was like really young, so like I didn't really know like kind of like where to look. I didn't even know that there was like help for it. So I kind of just like distracted myself and like, I went through like a really long period where I was like feeling like really, really anxious and like really freaked out by a lot of stuff. But like I felt like I kind of had no other choice but to like distract myself because I feel like I didn't have the support. And it definitely worked for like a little bit. Um, and then this most recent time where I would say like I actually like was able to like do something about it was I guess it started, I would say I went on like a trip to Mexico last August, and I almost had like it was kind of like a freak accident, like near death experience. So I was like in the water and then I ended up like getting like taken under by like waves. And I remember like in the moment I like was literally feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm gonna die. And I felt like this like almost like I like froze and I felt like this like rush of like panic. And then I ended up like being okay, obviously. And like when I got out, I was like also in like another country, like all by myself. Um, and I just remember feeling like extremely panicky, like obviously because of the situation that just happened. Um, so then I kind of was like, okay, you're just panicky because, you just had a near-death experience. Like that was really scary. And I kind of just like chalked it up to like the situation that just happened and that like everything was going to be fine when I got home. So then I actually flew home the next day. Um, and I remember like it kind of like happened like as a gradual thing. Like every day I woke up, I was feeling like a bit more anxious and it wasn't really like going away. And then I was like thinking like, okay, it's probably because you just had this like really bad experience. It kind of like carried on. Um, until one day I remember like this was probably like a week after I got home. I remember waking up like in a panic attack. Like it was almost like I woke up and I was already in a panic attack without even having to think or anything. Um, and I remember like looking around my room and like I just remember being like I felt like I was like not in my room. Like I remember looking around and like looking at my desk was scaring me, looking at like my chair, like the fact that I was like in my room, like I didn't really understand like what was going on, but everything felt extremely like I was seeing it for the first time. And it was just like the oddest feeling. And then I remember like really like I don't think I've ever been so scared in my whole life. And I remember like holding myself in my bed and I like called my mom and I was like, you have to take me to like the ER or something because like something really bad is happening to me. And I think like because of like me coming back from my trip and like my parents knowing that I was already panicky about that, they were like, oh, like you're just having a panic attack. Like, and I do know what panic attacks feel like because I've had one before, but like I guess I hadn't had these like DPDR symptoms where everything felt like really strange. So I didn't think anyone like really understood what I was going through, which made it like really scary. Um, so then I went to the hospital and I explained like my symptoms to one of the like psych doctors that came and saw me. And he actually mentioned that he thought I was maybe suffering from DPDR. And I didn't even know what that was. So then he like kind of explained it. He's like, oh, it's like where you kind of feel like, disconnected from like your reality and you kind of like disassociate. And then it was like making me feel a bit better because I was like, okay, like at least this is something that maybe they're like recognizing. Um, but then when I left the hospital, I felt like really lost because I was like, okay, they like recognize it, but like I still don't know what to do, and like
Did
everything
he
is
give
still
you any
feeling.
tips or anything on how to deal with it? Or
He did like mention, he was like, you should try like mindfulness practices and like meditation, but like because of like the state I was in, I was like, I can't even like be in reality right now. So like how do you expect me to like sit there and meditate? Um, and then it kind of just like carried on this cycle of like the same thing. Like I'd say the symptoms got worse where like I started like feeling really disconnected from like my family, like, and that was really scary because like if I don't have like my family, I kind of felt like I had nobody. So like I remember like even things like so simple like sitting in the living room like talking with my mom and my dad, I would be like looking at them and I'm like, I don't feel like I have any like emotional like connection to them. Like they just felt like so detached from my life. And that was like terrifying because I was like, why do I feel like these people are like strangers to me? Um, and then it was also like really hard to kind of like explain that to them too, because it sounds like it just I don't know if they would like understand. It also sounds like really like sad for me to be like, oh, I feel like I don't like love you like it. But I was able to like tell my mom a lot of stuff, so she was able to help me through it. But it was kind of like a cycle of like me like just really trying to get rid of all these symptoms, whether it was like trying to distract myself and then like that not working and then like going to another hospital and then, them telling me like the same thing. And it kind of got to the point where one of the like hospitals I went to, they prescribed me like antipsychotics.
Hmm.
And I think that that like really scared me because I was like, okay, well, like I don't want to be like psychotic. Like, like I'm not saying it in like a bad way, but like I was just like really lost because I was like, nothing is working. And just like every day, it was like I would wake up and like my whole life just felt really weird. Like I was like looking at it through like this really detached lens. Like I wasn't actually like in reality. Um, so yeah, that was just like really scary. And I felt like, um, yeah, I really just like, I was getting like help in a way where people were telling me like what they thought it was, but like I kind of like was lost in like what to actually do about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine like what that must be like to have someone acknowledge that they know what you're struggling with, but then also prescribe you an antipsychotic drug. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my goodness. And did you take the medication or did you end up not taking it?
I did take it. I remember like the day that they prescribed it to me. I actually remember like being in the hospital that day and like I had that exact feeling where I was like, I cannot like go back out into like life and like not know what to do. Like someone like absolutely like needs to help me. And I remember like being in the ER and like I was like, this has got to be something like really bad. Like something is really bad is happening to me and like it can't just be like anxiety. So then like of course like at the end they were like, you're just really anxious. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, can you please just like do something to help me? Like, is there like a psychologist, is there like something you can give me? Because like at this point in like my experience, I was basically like just waking up in a panic attack like every single day. Um, so they did give me like the medication and I took like I think a half of a pill and it basically was just there to like really calm me down. Like so
Mhm.
like I just got like really, really tired, which like it did calm my like nervous system down, but like I would still like really struggle with like the like existential thoughts and like I wouldn't like have this like panic reaction to like the DPTR symptoms because I was like in such like a calm state because of like the pill I was taking. But like it was still this like almost like a underlying like feeling of dread where like
Yeah.
you're like, oh my gosh, like nothing is actually okay right now and like, I'm gonna like deal with this like forever. So yeah, and then I was kind of like just searching a lot on Google, which was like kind of like enticed the panic even more. And then I eventually like got to your page by like searching around. Because I remember doing your course in like around Halloween, so it was like in October.
October.
Um, yeah, and then I was on the waiting list for like a couple months, so like probably around like Christmas.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was because I was in Scotland for Christmas and then I started talking
And
to you. So yeah, I remember. Yeah, so it was a good like I mean your course like helped a lot. Like I actually got some guidance with how I could start doing something like myself to help me in the moment.
so what would you say were your like your main symptoms? Because it's a bit different for everyone. You definitely struggle with existential questions. I think that's also
Mhm.
we worked on the most. Um,
Yeah.
were your like other symptoms? How did you experience the DPDR yourself?
So I'd say that I like if I were like reflect on like what I struggled with, I'd say the beginning, like what initially like really freaked me out was like the DPDR symptoms and like those were like I just like I felt like not like connected to anybody. I felt like everything around me like had this like weirdly big significance where I was like just freaked out by everything. Like anything, like it'd be like a car, it'd be like people, like I would feel so detached. Like I was almost like I remember being out back with my dad and telling him that I felt like I was looking at him like through like a screen and that he wasn't actually like there. And he like didn't understand what I was talking about, but that's basically how I saw things all the time. So like when I would be looking at things, I felt like I wasn't actually there to like in that reality experiencing it. I was just watching it. Um, I felt yeah, that was probably like the biggest symptom, like feeling like disconnected and especially like my feelings, like just like inside, like I felt like I had no emotion. Like I was just like a hollow. It was such a bizarre, like I felt like I couldn't even be sad or like anything. I was just like empty. Um, yeah, like just like people really close to me, I didn't feel like connected to them. Um, I could not watch like any videos on like I guess this is getting into the existential stuff, but um like after feeling like the DPDR symptoms, like I started questioning like, okay, like, like humans and like looking at like my family is so weird. Like I started questioning like what even are like humans? Like how are we even here? And like even like myself, like I would like be very hyper aware of like my own like consciousness, I guess, and like my own thoughts. And like I didn't have an answer to that, obviously. So like it just seems so bizarre to me. Like I'd be like, what is like existence? Like the whole like existence thing like really freaked me out. Um yeah, like even just like looking up at the sky, like I felt like everything was just like so big and I couldn't like wrap my head around like how like large everything was and just like yeah, like existence itself was like a huge trigger, which is like I'm existing every day. But yeah, like just like if anyone were to bring anything up like oh, like space or like, like time, like I just anything that like made me like question any of those things, like I would start getting really panicky about it. I remember like my brother or my dad put on like a documentary about like the universe or something and like just seeing the visuals of it like sent me into like a full panic attack. Like I couldn't like anything that I couldn't actually like answer or wrap my head around, like I tried to avoid thinking about completely. Um, and then like even just things like where I'm like, okay, like, like, are we even real? Like, like, is this all just like fake? And like, how do I know if it is fake or not? And like, just all these like really scary, scary questions that like at the time I was like, if I don't figure this out, like, I don't know, like, it's just, like, I absolutely like needed an answer to these questions and it was just really scaring me. Um, and it kind of just like came in layers. Like it was kind of like I'd be fixated on one thing, like maybe like, you know, consciousness and like, like how am I even here right now? Like how am I thinking? And then, I would like all of a sudden start fixating on like space and I wouldn't be able to like wrap my head around it. So like basically anything that like was like an unknown that I didn't have like a definite, scientific answer for, I would just be terrified, like,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, something like really bad was like gonna happen. Like it was almost like there was this feeling that like something really bad was gonna happen like all the time, even though nothing was actually happening. Um, and then I remember like one of like the last, and like this was also like throughout when we were doing sessions, like we would do a session and then I would like, really work on like accepting like a certain thought or like idea. And then like I would feel better about it. And then like another one would hit me. And like, I guess I hadn't really grasped the like concept of like, just accepting the unknown in general. Um, so then I think the last one was like, I was walking down the street and then I just thought like, like where did this like all begin? Like where was the beginning of like, time and like the earth? And like I don't think I've ever been so scared in my life. Like I remember just being like, I can't even believe like, it's almost like you ask yourself these questions and then you think because you ask them, there's no going back to like thinking about life how you thought of it before. So
Mm.
that was like another like really bad symptom where I was like, okay, like I thought like way too much into all of these questions that like nobody else has probably even thought about before. So now like I'm the one stuck in this like state of like thinking this deeply and not being able to like unthink all this. So I just kind of thought like, yeah, like I did it to myself and like, yeah, like I just like created this like really, bad reality for myself. So
So now that
yeah.
you're doing a lot better, obviously, I'm assuming that you didn't answer the questions or you didn't find them. So,
I
um,
don't, yeah, I didn't.
how do you look
Yeah.
to these questions now? And I guess what's your perception towards that now from a place of being more at peace within yourself?
hmm Um, like now, yeah, like definitely like I don't have like any answers, obviously. And like before, like the idea, like it's so weird saying it now because like I never thought I would ever be in a place where I could be okay with like not knowing any of those questions. Like I remember like I forget like when the shift was for me, but I remember like in one of our sessions you like said something where you were um like is it more important to like know all these answers or is it more important to like find peace?
Yeah,
And then it kind of like really broke it down in like a really simple like straight up like thing for me where like before I was just like on this like wheel of like, like figure out this one and then like oh my god you can't figure out this one and then like I was spinning like I couldn't like it was almost like I I didn't really know how to get out of it. Like I just thought the only way out was for me to like feel calm by knowing the answers to these questions. Um, but then like just what you said, it just broke it down really simply. And I'm like, I'm prioritizing like this like need of knowing over just like feeling good. And like it kind of just like it almost feels like when you're in it, it's like way more complicated than it actually is. Like
I
coming
agree.
from our sessions, I'm like, now I look back at it and I'm like, I can see that like all of that was just fear and it was all just like my ego being like, we need to figure this out because like if not, we're in danger. And like, but in the moment, you're like, no, this is like way more complex. Like I've like entered this like weird like phase of like knowing all this stuff and like, but it's really just fear. And like I think like when I realized that I had a choice to like prioritize something over fear, that's when it really like shifted for me. So like I'd say like at the beginning when I was in like a panic stage, like over like little things, like your meditations really helped me, like just like in the moment, like come to a place of like being calm. And then I would see things like a bit more clearly, like not so like in my head, like it would kind of bring me into the moment. And also just like feeling safe in my body was like a huge one. Like there was like a safety meditation that I would do and it like really like touched on like, like I am safe here. So like feeling unsafe was like such a big trigger. So like just even feeling safe for like 10 minutes would like really help. Um and then yeah, and then like when we got like deeper into it, like all these like layers were coming off or like I just realized like it was the same thing every time. Like I had some big question that was like unanswerable and like I was just like so freaked out that I didn't know the answer to it. And like I was almost like looking for things to like prove like that like everything was like weird and bad. Um, and then like after you said that, like every single time, like say like something like happened where like, you know, like I would come across like something that said like, oh, like life is like a simulation or like a dream. Like normally that would send me into a panic. And then like I was just like, okay, like, are you gonna choose to like dive into this like hole of like thinking about all the possibilities and like, you know, is this like, you know, going into this like deep like realm of thought about this like post? Or like are you just gonna choose to like put your phone down and like go inside and like, you know, get on with your day? And like it's a lot like harder said, like easier said than done, but like it took like multiple times to like practice like choosing, you
Mhm.
know, like like I'm not gonna go down this path of like fear because like in the end, like it also takes a lot of like going through it to know that in the end you just get to the same place every time. So like nothing actually gets like answered.
Yeah,
So like yeah, so like again, like the more I did it, the more I could see clearly like, okay, like, you know, this is just like fear. Like you're actually choosing to like, you know, do something productive for yourself, or like you're choosing to like just be peaceful instead of like choosing to like, you know, figure out all these really, you know, scary questions, which you obviously cannot figure out. And another thing that like really helped was like something you said where you were like, we were in a session and like you were like, you could like kind of like fight for control like all you want, and like you could try and answer these questions all you want, but like once they're all answered, like life is still the way it is. Like, you know, even if I were to have the answer for all of them, like I'm still here, like I'm still in the exact same place as I was.
getting
So
the
I think it was all,
actions doesn't actually change anything about life. Like it,
yeah.
like nothing would change. It would just be the exact same. You just know a bit more. So, no,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like it was really just like it's so tricky because like I find that like at the beginning when you're really deep in existential like questions, because of the dread that you feel, you're just like, no way can I like ever accept like not figuring this out. And you think like there's no way that I can like possibly go on like not knowing these answers, because I genuinely did feel like that at one point. Like I genuinely was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do because I can't go through life not knowing these answers. And I'm in like a total place of like I don't know any of these answers and I feel like 100% totally fine with it. Um in a way where like I'm still aware that I don't know. It's not like I feel like I have any like more like knowledge on anything. It's more just like I'm just in a place where like I'm really okay with like not knowing. And I think it's like really about, you know, just accepting also like maybe a feeling of like panic, or like accepting like maybe a feeling that like you're scared, and
Mhm.
like knowing that like just because you're scared and just because you're panicky, like you're still safe. Like they're not gonna like those feelings aren't gonna hurt you. And I think that like accepting like really uncomfortable emotions and like accepting like really uncomfortable thoughts was like huge. Like it's funny because like when I was like going through like even DPDR symptoms and stuff, like I was so focused on like, you know, what can I do to like not feel these things? Like I don't want to feel these things. And how I ended up like not feeling like that anymore was just like allowing myself to feel everything, like allowing myself to feel disconnected. And I would just like kind of go through my day being like, okay, like I feel disconnected, like whatever, like what, like I can't do anything about it right now. Like I'm just, I guess I'm gonna feel disconnected today. And like it took me a lot to get there, but like you feel like after that, you almost feel like you're kind of like untouchable, because you're like, I can experience like, you know, weird symptoms and I can experience all these like super scary emotions. But like when you allow yourself to accept it, your brain kind of realizes like, okay, like we actually are allowed to like be here and feel these things. Like they're not
Yeah.
really that scary. So that was like a huge help. And like, I'm still doing that now. Like as I like before we started, like I still have points where I'm like, you know, like I feel really panicky, but like I'm really good at like being like, you know, it's okay. Like I guess I feel anxious today and I'm just gonna keep on going with my day, and like I guess I just feel anxious. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah.
It's very interesting, and because I think when we think about recovery, biggest mistake that we make is thinking that recovery means absence of uncomfortable feelings or absence of discomfort. Rather, that's lack of, like, absence of thinking or absence of fear. But the goal of recovery is to be resilient to discomfort. That, you know, if you feel fear, that you can feel it. That if you have a negative thought, again, that you understand that it comes from a negative feeling, and that you won't feel resilient enough to feel that lack of control or to feel that fear in your body. So it's interesting because you said that right before I started recording. When I asked you how you were, you said, you know, that sometimes, yeah, you do still struggle, which is human. Everyone does. I still do.
Hmm.
But to feel confident in knowing that you can handle it, that that confidence allows you to actually let the emotions flow, because emotions are literally sort of energy in motion. When it
Hmm.
passes, it goes, and then you don't sit with it so long. So I'm really
Hmm.
to say that it's not like just for you about being completely in lack of discomfort, but just really feeling like you can handle it if it comes up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think that like also like just like realizing that like you taught me like so much about like instead of like addressing, like I feel like when we had sessions, instead of like addressing like, you know, each individual thing, like being like, okay, like what is this one thought? Like we kind of like always just talked about the core of it, just like being like fear. And
Mhm.
like I see that now in like so many other like parts in my life where like I think it's like really uncovering like, you know, like where I struggle as a person is where like I really struggle with like the unknown. So like even like going back, like I used to have really bad like health anxiety where like anytime I had a symptom, like, you know, I had to know for sure that like I wasn't gonna like die or something. And like although that's very different from DPDR, it like all just centers around this like, you know, like this ego of like being like, I need to know 100%. And I think that that's where like a lot of like the panic comes from with like existential thoughts and stuff is like our thought in our head where like we're thinking like, oh, I need to know 100%. And like because like we never will, that like makes us panic a lot. So I think like it's just, yeah, it's weird to say, but like I'm actually in a way better place, like having gone through all of that, as scary as it was, than like I think I was before I even had DPDR. Like I think before, like, you know, like I would always say when I was in DPDR, I'd be like, oh, like I wish I could just go back to like not like being so oblivious to life and like not knowing anything and like, you know, not even thinking about existence. Like, why did I have to like think about this? Like I missed my old life. Like I literally felt like I transformed like from one life to another. Like I just like crossed this like barrier and now I'm in this like weird stage of life. But like I feel like after DPDR, you cross like another barrier and it's just like you're so like free and you feel so like strong in ways that like you never would have really felt if you didn't have to like, you know, like really work on like, you know, these core like things that were like causing even things before. So like even before, like I feel like I'm becoming like not as fearful as a person that I even was before I had DPDR. So
Mhm.
like yeah, and I think like if like anyone is like whoever listens to this, like I think like one of the biggest struggles is thinking like, you know, like nothing can be worse than this and like, you know, I've just like ruined my life. But like there is actually like such a better thing waiting for you, like because of all the work that you do and like you actually get to these like core things that like just make you as a person better and like just make like life better in general. Like after like you feel like way more like empowered and like free and like you don't feel kind of like, you know, a slave to like, you know, your fears and like your ego and like all these scary thoughts that yeah, I think that like it's really like helped me a lot. So
That's a really good point, because what DPDR, and especially the existential crisis that comes with it sometimes, does is it takes away all your comfort that you attach to outside of yourself. Like it just strips all of that away from you. Like there's nothing to
mhm.
hold anymore, nothing to cling to anymore. So the only thing you can still cling to is eventually finding peace with not having anything to cling to, which makes you internalize your sense of safety, and like you say, and really finding it within yourself. And once you have that, you have some type of comfort zone that can never be taken away from you, because to be in control of surrendering to things you can't control is comfort that no one can ever take away from you, because whatever it is, you can always choose to say yes to it. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very interesting. I completely agree that I think it's one of the most uncomfortable things any human can ever go through. Probably,
Yeah.
unless maybe losing a child. Sometimes I wonder that that's like probably a lot worse.
Yeah.
But there's so little that is like more uncomfortable than what you went through, so that when you do get through it, you're just you're you're untouchable, as a
Yeah.
being. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
mhm. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
I was just gonna say like yeah, like I even like now like there was like phases where like I would experience DPDR and like feel myself being like it's also that feeling of like okay, like I've got through this before, like I can that kind of like helps you. Um, but like I completely agree, like it totally like just strips away like yeah, like all your comfort, like everything that you would think of as like safety, like your familiar, like even like your family, like stuff like that. So yeah, I think it like is definitely like very, very like that's what makes it like so scary is like you don't have that like comfort or safety. So you kind of have to like turn like inwards.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So is there anything that, in terms of like advice for the people listening, in terms of things you maybe haven't mentioned yet, or like just anything that you still wanted to share for everyone listening about a tip that you might have on for their recovery journey?
Yeah, I think that if I could like, there's a bunch I have, but like if I could like really bring it down to like anything, I think one of the things like I really had to learn was like recovery is like so like up and down. Like I remember like having sessions with you and like finishing a session and like being like I'm healed. Like I remember being like, like I I totally feel like okay about this and then like another like really big question would hit me and I'd be like, "Oh my God, like I've never felt so scared before. Like I thought like, like I was over this. Like I thought I'm able to like accept feelings, like what happened?" And like you explained it in a way where like there's like if you were looking at like an onion, there's like all these layers that like kind of fall off and then like at the very core is like peace. And it was really hard for me to like wrap my head around that because like sometimes like you'll be doing so good and then like something like will come along that will maybe just like turn your world upside down again and you'll be like, "Oh my God, I'm back to like, point one." When really you're like really not at point one, you're actually like so far from it. But like it's it's almost like you have to just like give it time because you're basically like I just feel like fear is like so deep and it's like such a like deep rooted thing in people and like the ego and like I find that when you're working on like um like kind of like yourself and like recovering from that, like you're gonna go through so many different layers and like you're gonna think like, oh, I'm doing so good, and then you're gonna like maybe go back to doing not so good. But just remembering that like it's all part of like the process to actually get to like a place where you are actually like you are gonna like feel like yourself and like you're gonna feel good and like you're gonna feel like love and you're gonna feel like peace and like you 100% will, but like you just have to like really remind yourselves in those times. I think that like, this is all just part of the process. Like it's part of like, I have to go through these like setbacks because it just is like it just makes you stronger. And like sometimes there's just like more layers that need to fall off and it just means like you're healing like even deeper. So I think that like a scary thing for me was having setbacks and thinking like, I'm never going to be cured or like, like this just like doesn't work for me. Like it does. It's just you just have to like remind yourself in those times that like it's kind of just like part of like the whole entire thing. And like you're gonna feel like better, but like you're actually just like going up, even though it feels like you're like going down. So your course like helped a lot. And like one of the things like I learned in your course was like there was something that I would do like kind of when I was in like the beginning stages, when I was like really like struggling, just like feeling any kind of like uncomfortable emotions, is I would do this like meditation, and it would just be for like 10 minutes or like 15 minutes. And I find that like meditations just help so much because it kind of just like in the moment you like, even though it's just for like 10 or 15 minutes, it like over time your body kind of like, gets used to that. And then you kind of start carrying that like into your day as well.
Mm.
Um, just like doing like maybe like a 10-minute meditation and just like focusing on like, being safe like in your body like really helped. Um, and like it may like even feel like at first I felt a bit frustrating because like you're maybe in a state where like you feel like you can't really like sit for 10 minutes and do something because you're like thinking. But like even if you just like allow yourself to think like but you're just sitting there and you just keep doing it like every day, I find that like it just calms this like even for 10 minutes it gives your mind like a break from like just like spinning with like all these thoughts. And you can kind of like separate yourself from it and see it more clearly that like like those are just thoughts, and like I can like separate myself from it and just be calm for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Another thing that like really helped was like another like kind of fear that like I went through was like thinking about like life after death. And like this was actually one that like I kind of like worked through on my own, like because I was like feeling like good about it. So like I don't think we had sessions over it, but yeah, I was like thinking about life after death, and like it was just like scaring me. And like I was able to kind of just like a huge thing was just like allowing myself to like sit with uncomfortable emotions. So like also like if I was feeling like really scared, I would kind of just like sit there and like say out loud like like I'm feeling really uncomfortable, because it kind of just like really like separated like it didn't make the emotion like me, like I was like it was me saying it. So like I would say like I'm feeling like really scared right now, but
Yeah.
like it would kind of just like I find that like verbalizing like how you're feeling, like it helped me so much because it separated me from like the feeling. So like yeah, like I remember thinking about like life after death and me being like, wow, like I'm feeling really scared about that thought. And then I would kind of sit and just like be like, what does this feel like in my body? And like I think that like recognizing what it feels like in your body helps so much, because you're allowing it to just like move through your body, and you're also like not letting it consume you, like take you over. You're kind of like, okay, like this is a feeling, like a sensation in my body. And like even like if I would feel it in my chest or whatever, like I would just put like my hand like on my chest. And it helps so much because it's such like an accepting, like gentle thing to do when you're feeling really scared, instead of being like, oh no, like I want to get rid of this like feeling. So like yeah, just like meditating, like recognizing feelings and like kind of like feeling them in your body, like purposely doing that. Um, Another thing that like helped me, and I think this is just like a personal thing, was like um hearing like life after death like stories, like people who have been like near death experiences, and like just hearing like just their positive outlook and like their like mentality towards life after death. And like it brings such like a just like positive like mindset to like where like it doesn't have to be so scary, like just because you don't know, it doesn't have to be
Exactly.
like terrifying. So
Exactly.
yeah, just hearing people's like experiences of like them having like such a positive outlook on it, and it just being really like beautiful, and like that just like really calmed me down, because it kind of made me think like just because I don't know something, like why does the answer have to be something really scary? Like it could be really good. So like just kind of like knowing like kind of like yeah, like hearing stories and like listening to like other perspectives on things too, like in like positive ones, like not negative ones, um like really helped. And yeah, I'd say like the biggest thing is just like really sitting with like uncomfortable like feelings, and like yeah, not like distracting yourself, but like just being like, okay, like let's feel this. And then your body kind of just gets used to feeling uncomfortable emotions and like being like more okay with it.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I guess like to finish off, how are you doing today? How are you doing in general now?
Yeah. I'm doing, compared to like when we last spoke, like I'm doing really well. I think that like yeah, like I I feel like I'm really back into like, things that like I used to do. Like I'm doing like I'm working again, like I'm doing track, like I'm going out with friends and like I'm kind of doing it in the midst of like also going through like uncomfortable periods where like before like I would kind of just be like, okay, like I can't do anything. I have to like 100% focus on like being better and like I would kind of put my life to the side, but I feel like I'm really integrating like yeah, just like kind of everything that I was feeling before, but like I'm able to do like it's way less. Like I'm totally okay with like not knowing and like I'm also okay with feeling like uncomfortable now. So I feel like I feel like really confident and like not so like worried like going through my like everyday life, which is like really nice. There's definitely like still like things that pop up where I'm like, oh, like I'm really like that makes me really scared. Like I need to work on like accepting that. But I was never in a place before where I felt like I could do that on my own. And like now I am.
No, you're
So that is, yeah, I'm in like a really, I feel like very, like safe to handle it on my own, where before I was like kind of like reaching for anyone to help me. So, um, yeah, I feel like I'm definitely like still working on things, but I'm doing it in a way where I can like live my life and I'm feeling like so much more peace like every day. I think like the more like I work through stuff, it's just like so much easier. It's like I'm able to do it without like, you know, panicking and like yeah, I feel like very confident. I'm also like enjoying life too, like just like little like silly things. Yeah.
amazing. I'm so glad
Yeah.
to hear that, Amy. Makes me really happy.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming on today. Is it okay if people ask you questions in the comments in case they have
Of
any?
course.
Perfect.
Yeah, of course. I'll definitely answer.
Amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
everyone for watching. Thank you, Amy, for coming on, and hope you all
Thank
have
you.
a lovely rest of your day. Bye.
Bye, Robin. Thank you.